It's just too expensive.
We just don't have budget for something like this.
We're pretty happy with our current solution.
Look, we're interested, it's just really bad timing.
Every salesperson hears the same objections all the time. Sales objections. Ugh. So that leads us to today's discussion. Should you handle objections upfront or wait until the end of the sales process? But here's the real problem. Most reps wait till the end of the call when the objection comes up to handle the objection that the buyer actually has been having this entire time. And by then, it already feels like a fight. In this video, I'm going to show you a very effective 4-step system to help overcome objections the right way. I'm also going to show you where objections come from, why they usually appear late, when you should prevent them up front, and how to handle the ones that you're probably going to miss but without pressure. Once you see objections this way, sales gets calmer, cleaner, and a lot more predictable. Steve, credibility. 5.2 million in sales. I sold a lot of stuff. Pew, pew.
Did you have that shirt on?
Some quick context before we start. I'm Steve Carroll, and I've sold $5.2 million in product in tech sales over just the last year alone. I've spent the last 8 years in sales, both B2B and B2C, and I went from a sales rep who almost got fired to adding $130,000 to my income in just 1 year. Not by becoming louder or memorizing better lines, but by changing the way I handled conversations. And that's what we're going to break down today. Because once you zoom out, you realize the real argument about objections has been missing the real issue the entire time. This video is part of my real myths versus methods series, where we break the things that salespeople repeat and replace it with things that actually work in today's market. Salespeople argue about objections constantly. One group says, well, if you're better at objection handling, you'd close more. Another says, if you're getting objections and you already messed up. And both sides are convinced they're right. Well, both sides are half right. When salespeople try to deal with them is the difference. Most reps wait until the end of the conversation to deal with thoughts that the buyer had the entire time. So when the objection shows up, it feels sudden, but it wasn't. It was just quiet. So the easiest way to understand this is stop thinking about objections as resistance, but stop thinking about them as signals. Think about objections like the check engine light in your car. The light's not the problem, and smashing the dashboard doesn't fix the engine, right? Something underneath needs attention. Most salespeople try to just shut the light off. Great salespeople open the hood. Objections don't mean the deal is broken. They might mean something important wasn't resolved earlier. I didn't understand this until it cost me more deals than I realized. There was a stretch in my career where every good call felt the same. Good conversation, good energy, and then right at the end of the call, oh, I'll get back to you, or I need to think about it. I thought I needed better comebacks. What I really needed to do was slow down earlier and let people tell me what they were actually thinking. If you miss this skill early in your career, sales doesn't feel hard, it feels absolutely draining. So you doubt more, you start to feel like it's more personal. And that's why it's important to look out for these objections early. Here's what actually happens when objections don't get handled or prevented. They don't disappear, they go quiet. And when objections go quiet, they don't shrink, they grow. So on the call, everything sounds fine, right? They're nodding, they're saying, yes, that makes sense, they're engaged, but underneath all that is questions and doubts that they've been stacking on top of each other. And because you can't see them, you clearly start compensating without realizing it. You over-explain, you talk more, you fill space instead of just letting the silence do its work. Not because you're bad at sales, but because intuition is telling you that something's off and you need to take action. You try to fix it with effort, and that's where the cascade starts. This is the point where the sale becomes mentally expensive for you. You follow up more than you should in between calls. Hey, is this real? Like, you're rethinking conversations, you read emails looking for tone, you wonder, did I say too much? Did I say it wrong? Did I offend somebody? And suddenly the whole deal feels heavy. Every follow-up feels like pressure and you start to dread it. Every silence feels personal. Every let me think about it starts a slow leak of your confidence, and you're not executing a process anymore. You're just trying to push something forward and doubting, right? Guessing. Most people think this is part of the job. It's normal to chase. It's normal to explain. It's normal to feel drained, but it's not. You're doing the late stage objection handling for early stage uncertainty. So that mismatch forces you into defense mode. Defense drains energy. Prevention doesn't. When you prevent as many objections as you can, as early as you can, follow-ups feel clean and pricing conversations feel natural, not emotional. And then the close will feel obvious. When objections aren't prevented early on, every deal feels fragile. and confidence erodes quickly and quietly. Burnout sneaks in, but it's disguised as hustle or work ethic. The worst part isn't losing deals. It's losing trust in your own ability to read a room or read a person you're talking to. You stop knowing when a deal is real and when excitement is genuine and when silence is harmful versus fatal. So you try to control, and the tools of choice for most are more words, more logic, and more pressure. This will push every deal in the wrong direction because you're trying to convince a prospect that you're worth it by using your own words and not guiding the conversation by asking good questions. Imagine this life instead. You just told your customer or your prospect the price of your product. They bring up the first objection and you actually are happy to hear it. Don't panic. There's no reason to. There's no fear because you understand that objection is actually a buying signal. You know what to say next. You're on top of that and you've even practiced for this exact moment. So you feel calmer, you feel clearer, the situation is predictable, and then your mind is calm, which lets you think more on your feet. The answer to your question sounds more confident and more concise, and your prospect feels it. Your prospect is going to start to respond more positively. And overall, that panic will start to be replaced with answers, certainty that will lead to more dollars closed. So before we go any further, let's clear up something to those who say you need objection handling. That's 100% true. You'll miss things and not be able to prevent every one. You need to hone that skill. The "you should prevent objections" crowd is also right. Most objections come from unclear value or hidden fear or unanswered questions. Prevent those and selling gets easier and you'll have less objections to deal with at the end. Here's the easiest way to think about this. Seatbelts are prevention. Airbags are objection handling. Good drivers use both, but no one starts thinking, oh, if I crash, I'll just use the airbag, right? In anything that matters, if you prevent what you can up front, you prepare to handle what you miss just in case. That's not theory, that's creating the best reality you can, and that's how people actually manage risk. Now we can talk about what you need to look for to uncover early objections. Here are two easy ways to tell when a prospect has an objection. Objections usually show up as signals before they show up as words. Here's what to watch for. Shorter, safer answers, when someone starts giving one-word replies, polite but vague responses, or answers that avoid specifics. It often means that they're protecting a concern that they're not ready to share out loud. They're disengaged, they're cautious, and they're guarded. Number two, energy drop or posture change, so keep an eye out for this. Top closers consistently report noting slower speech, longer pauses, less eye contact, leaning back or crossing their arms, right? These are nervous system cues, not conscious objections. Now that we know that there might be some objections, we can cover two ways to prevent them early. These methods are used in high-level consulting, therapy, coaching, and elite sales teams. Here we go. Method 1. Normalize the objection before it exists. Instead of waiting, invite resistance early. Here's an example. Most people at this point have at least one concern they're still thinking through. What's yours? Why does this work? It removes pressure and it signals safety, and it opens them up and gives them permission to be honest with you. This approach is supported by coaching psychology, where naming resistance lowers it. All right, here's method number 2. Ask for what's missing or what you're missing, not what's wrong. It avoids confrontation and it feels more collaborative, right? Hey, what's missing? What would you need to know to feel fully confident in moving forward? Why does this work? It shifts from defense to problem solving. It helps prospects articulate the concerns that they haven't fully formed yet. And it keeps you leading the conversation. Now that you've noticed the signs for the objections and can uncover them early, let's talk about how to proceed to handle them.
Here's what most sales training programs skip. People don't accept insight until they feel understood. This isn't sales advice, this is just psychology. So in therapy, professionals don't challenge beliefs first, they validate emotions first. Because when someone feels unheard, their nervous system stays activated, and they might even be in a state of alert without even knowing it. And an activated nervous system can't reason clearly. Pause for a second and think about it. Feeling unheard triggers that threat response, right? Both the mind and in the body. This is exactly what happens in sales when you're talking to people. A buyer raises an objection, the salesperson jumps straight into logic, and then when the buyer's still processing emotions and they're still feeling threatened, and the problem is that you don't overcome objections with answers. You overcome them with validation, right? You need to validate the prospect's statement first, and then clarity second. When you've helped someone feel heard, their body can calm down and you can talk things through. But even if they sound logical, you may not even be at the right problem yet. Answering an objection without diagnosis feels like pressure, because it is, right? In negotiations, there's one key idea: positions versus interest. A position is what someone says. An interest is why they say it. Most objections are positions. The real issue is almost always risk identity, or uncertainty. If you answer the objection, you lose. Uncover interest, then you win. Solving the wrong problem feels like pressure. Solving the right one feels like you're trying to help. And this is where sales and medicine actually have more in common than people realize. Doctors don't prescribe before diagnosing, but if they did, people wouldn't get better. But when it comes to selling, people are talking about their products, and we do this all the time, right? A buyer raises objection and the salesperson immediately prescribes an answer, and they say, here's the problem, here's how we're going to fix it. No diagnosis, no understanding of the cause. And an objection isn't the disease, it's the symptom. And when a prospect feels correctly diagnosed, the trust skyrockets. Cold call objections and how to handle them. Most objections don't happen because the prospects are just being difficult. They happen because the salesperson accidentally created uncertainty within the first 10 seconds of the call, which can trigger objection, which means your job immediately is not to overcome objections, it's to prevent them in the first place. This is where most people get it wrong. They start by sounding unsure, talking too fast, or giving vague context. All of that subconsciously tells that person, I'm not confident, right? I shouldn't be confident, and this might be a waste of time. And of course, protect yourself, right? It's the brain's natural response to uncertainty, right? And that becomes the objection. Leading with value means that you immediately reduce uncertainty. Now, how do we do that? Here's how you do it. You have to be clear about why you are reaching out. Anchor to a relevant problem that is pretty likely that they would have, based on research you've done. Asking a short, emotionally engaging questions, using calm, confident tones, and pacing yourself. You're not selling a product, you're selling a certainty that this conversation is worth continuing. Sell the test drive of your product before you book the meeting and move on. In summary, reduce uncertainty. Don't convince. Sell the test drive. If you're ever reaching out to somebody for the first time and they're not expecting your call, it's okay to say that. Just remember, most people don't like random phone calls in the middle of the day. I don't even answer sometimes when my mom calls. So keep that in mind. Tell the person that you're calling why taking the call with you is going to be the best decision of their day. In fact, sometimes I'll say this on a call. I'll say, if you give me 30 seconds, I'll explain to you why taking this call is the best decision that you'll make all day. And if you disagree, we'll part ways as friends. Does that sound fair? I try not to use the "that sound fair" comment as much as possible. Because of course, you're asking them to say yes, when they may not feel that way. They might feel patronized. But in summary, reduce uncertainty. Don't convince, sell the test drive. Comment cold calling below if you want me to do a full video on this. Preventing objections is the strategy. Handling objections is the backup plan. Even great sellers miss things, right? The difference is that they don't panic when objections show up because they know exactly how to handle what they missed. Let's talk about how to handle objections that you didn't prevent. Handling objections isn't failure. Needing to handle every objection is. You don't need to handle every single one. Here's a 3-step process that you can use to handle objections. Validate, recap, reframe. You don't drag people forward. You help them see where they're going and you help them get there. So step 1, validate. You're going to use phrases like, hey, that's totally understandable. It's not an agreement. It's just not disagreement, right? This is acknowledgement. Only then does it make sense to continue the conversation. Without this step, everything that follows feels like pressure, even if your logic is perfect, right? Prospect says something like, I want to talk it over with my wife, or something like that. You say, hey, that makes total sense. Then pause. The pause matters. Then you recap. Now that the conversation is calm, you reinstate what they said. Remember, clearly, neutrally, without a spin, what I'm hearing is you and your wife make decisions together and you don't want to rush it. You feel confident you're making the right call, right? Then you check your work. Did I get that right? Or is there something else that needs to be addressed before you decide? Anything else that I didn't know about? This is diagnosis. You're not overcoming anything yet. You're confirming what's real, what's assumed, and what's still missing. Only after this step do you earn the right to reframe. And so then you reframe. This is where you give direction, you guide. Now and only now do you help them look at the situation differently. Not by arguing, not by pushing, but by connecting their stated concern to the decision that you're trying to make. Here's the way that could sound. Hey, so I hear this a lot, and can I share an observation from conversations that sound like this and what they sound like? You wait for the yes. Remember, most people that want to talk things over with their partner aren't avoiding the decision. They are trying to make sure that they're aligned and that they're confident, right? You tie it directly to what they said in step 2. So let me ask you this, right? What would you need to hear or understand to be clear enough to have a productive conversation with her? What kind of questions do you think are going to come up? This reframes the objection from I need more time into I need clarity before moving forward. And now you're leading. You've turned resistance into collaboration. When you zoom out, this changes how you see objections completely. Objections are created early. They're missed when people rush. They must be diagnosed before answered, and only then should they be resolved. Once you stop fighting objections and start managing the stages, sales stops feeling like persuasion and it starts feeling like leadership. Now, before we recap, if this video has helped you get better at sales or been enjoyable, please give it a like and subscribe for more proven sales strategy. Now let's bring this all together. Objections aren't the problem, they're signals. Signaling that something earlier was unclear, unresolved, or misunderstood. That's why prevention is the strategy. Objection handling is the backup plan. Validation comes before insight. Diagnosis comes before treatment. The goal was never to win the conversation, it's just to remove doubt. Once you understand that, a bigger question comes up. If objections come from uncertainty, is the answer to apply more pressure at the end then, or to build up enough trust and clarity that the decision feels easy? Hard close, soft close? That choice alone determines how much you will sell and how consistently you'll sell it. That's what we're breaking down in the next video.